Hail Satin is the debut studio album by Bee Gees. It's by the Foo Fighters, but they're just going under that name for fun, I guess. And I'm not really sure what the inspiration behind this album was. It has 4 songs by the Bee Gees and a song by Andy Gibb, who was a brother of the Bee Gees. So you could say it was a Bee Gees tribute album, or the album also happened to come out on Record Store Day on July 17th, so I don't know if that has any meaning. Nevertheless, this is technically a new album by the Foo Fighters, where on the first side, we get 4 covers of Bee Gees songs and a cover of a song by Andy Gibb. And then the second song consists of live versions of 5 of their songs from their previous album, Medicine at Midnight, released in February of this year. And that was an album that I did review. It was my second video ever on this channel, so you can check that out if you want to. And I'll be honest, there are some things I said in that video and some things that I would change with regards to how I feel about that album. Overall, I do still have the same feelings pretty much. I do still like it and I wouldn't change my grade, but mainly just regards to how I feel about the songs individually. I think that my thoughts will change a bit. So yeah, this album, I don't know why it exists. I don't know why they did this, but it's here. We've made it to this point now when the Foo Fighters are making a disco cover album. And I think I should say that I'm not one of those people who is anti-disco. I don't dislike all disco music. There's definitely some that I can latch onto and some that I can enjoy. Having said that, the vast majority of what I have heard I don't like very much, and the Bee Gees are no exception to that. While I can definitely acknowledge and admire their talents and their songwriting abilities, musically their sound is just really not my thing, and especially vocally, I really just can't stand their voices. I'm not saying that they're bad singers necessarily, but I'm just saying that I don't like their singing voices. So I do definitely appreciate the legacy that they have and the status that they have among the larger spectrum of music. But personally, I just don't like them very much. That's kind of why I didn't like this album very much as well, because they're covering songs that I, for the most part, don't like very much. Even though surprisingly, I would say that they actually did a pretty competent job at recreating some of these songs with regards to the instrumentals. And Dave Grohl definitely does do a good job at mimicking their vocal aesthetics. And that is exactly why I did not like his vocals on this album at all. I mean, it was really like nails on a chalkboard. And most of the time, I love his voice. I think he's an underrated singer, but in this album, I just wasn't getting down with it just because he sounded too much like the Bee Gees, I guess. And these songs that they do cover in this album by the Bee Gees are You Should Be Dancing, Night Fever, Tragedy, and More Than a Woman. And while, like I said, musically, they do a decent job at recreating those songs, you know, I don't like the originals, so, I mean, not surprisingly, I'm not going to like the covers for them, especially since they're not really putting their own twist on it. They're really just trying to be exactly like the Bee Gees. I mean, there's a little bit of that Foo Fighters rock sound in there for sure. But for the most part, I mean, it's disco. This is definitely more disco than rock by a landslide. By far, my favorite song of the covers that they do is Shadow Dancing, which was an Andy Gibb song. And this one, if I'm not mistaken, did have Taylor Hawkins on lead vocals, who is the Foo Fighters drummer. And I thought he did a good job with this song vocally. I think his voice is pretty underrated. And I like the instrumental in this one. It was nice and funky, and again, did a pretty good job at recreating the original. It was a solid track, and like I said, it's by far my favorite out of all the covers that they do. Yeah, honestly, just a lot of this album I found to be kind of annoying, and even though I said musically they do a fine job at recreating the originals, there's definitely still something lacking there. And, you know, even though I don't like the Bee Gees, they definitely had a definitive sound to them and a certain quality that made a lot of their songs such big hits. For example, their rendition of Night Fever is very lacking in the strings part, because I've always found that the string arrangements in that song in Night Fever always played a really big part in what made that song so catchy and so danceable at the time. And in the Foo Fighters rendition, it's barely even present. It's not, I don't think, even real strings. It just sounds like a keyboard, probably that Rami played. And I just don't like that. I think that's really lazy on their part, and I would expect better from them, honestly. Also, the song Tragedy, again, musically, they do a fine job, but there's this like 34-second fade out at the end, which was just completely unnecessary. Like, you could have cut that down to, you know, a 10 to 15 second fade out like most songs have, at least the ones that do have fade outs. And then we get to side B of the album, which, like I said, is live versions from songs from Medicine at Midnight. And this is where I get into, I think, somewhat of an unpopular opinion of mine, and that's that I really don't like when albums have studio recordings and live performances, or they'll have like a mix of studio recordings and demos or live performances, bootlegs, like whatever. To me, I think that an album should just stick to one kind of sound with regards to the production and just stick with that and not change it up. Because I don't like going from hearing a clean studio recorded produced song to a live performance filled with cheers and claps from the audience and all these echoey vocals. I find that that just kind of takes me out of the listening process of listening to an album, and it's just not really a preference of mine. And it's not really that the live performances are bad. They're not. They're fun. They're perfectly okay, but I don't need them. And it also takes away from the album being a tribute to the Bee Gees. Just to put that on there to make it a full-length studio album, I mean, come on, you don't need to do that. You could have just had it be an EP. It would have been fine. I am curious, though, because there's 5 songs from the album, and the 4 of them that are on there were singles that were released from the album, Making a Fire, No Son of Mine, Shame, Shame, and Waiting on a War. And the 5th one, the last one on the album, is Cloud Spotter. So I'm wondering are they hinting towards that being the next single from the album, if there are going to be any other singles? I wouldn't mind that, honestly. I like that song, so that'd be cool. Yeah, I think that's going to about do it with my thoughts on this record. This was just not very good, in my opinion. I could admire the fact that they're, I think, trying to pay tribute to the Bee Gees and to Andy Gibb. And I'm sure in addition to that, they're just having fun here. They're just trying to have a good time. And you know what? That's perfectly fine. They can do whatever they want. They can just have fun with the record, just make one for fun, make one to be funny. That's fine. They're the Foo Fighters. They can do whatever they want. But with regards to my thoughts on it, I disliked it quite a bit. Even if they were just trying to have some fun, I just can't have fun with the Bee Gees music. And putting the whole rock spin on it just didn't help at all as well. So with that said, I'm going to give Hail Satin a D. It is leaps and bounds the worst thing I've ever heard from Foo Fighters. Like with regards to full-length albums, EPs, singles, live albums, anything, just anything they've ever put out. This is the worst thing by far. So yeah, if you guys have heard this, let me know what you think. Are you taking it seriously, or are you just trying to have fun with it? Or do I have any Bee Gees fans out there? I know there are a couple people subscribed to me that I know are fans of the Bee Gees, so yeah, I mean, not to say like sorry for trashing this album, but I guess I'm sorry if you think I should be sorry. Yeah, just let me know what you think in the comments. You know, maybe we're on the verge of getting a disco rock movement. I mean, we got pop punk. It's kind of making a comeback right now, so maybe the next rock movement will be disco rock. Drock. But yeah, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you so much for watching, if you did, and just take it easy. Peace out.